Ramiro leaned against the kitchen table and watched as Adina Miller applied mascara to her eyelashes one last time in the small mirror above the sink. There was something very tense about Becca, and today their apartment, where they had lived for just over 2 years, seemed terribly small, and neither of them could say a word. Ramiro, 31, was a graphic designer with a steady hand and a dreamy heart, while Adina, 29, worked in marketing and brought a dynamic energy to any room she entered. They met at a barbecue at a mutual friend's house, where they both complained about overcooked hamburgers and a playlist filled with unknown indie bands. For a while, their life flowed in perfect harmony. Weekend hikes, late-night conversations about their dreams, and quiet evenings with takeout and vinyl records. But lately that rhythm had begun to falter. Ramiro noticed that Adina had been distancing herself from him over the past few months. She even canceled their plans to visit friends from work. Her phone vibrated with messages that she laughed at but didn't show him. Today, she canceled their movie night to go to a bar downtown and have a drink with friends. Ramiro couldn't take it anymore. "Adina, we need to talk," he said in a harsh tone, his voice betraying his growing irritation. She sighed and closed the tube of mascara with a metallic click. "Can't it wait, Ramiro? I'm already late." "Of course it can't," he continued, leaning toward her. "I thought you were avoiding me. We hardly ever see each other." "That's not it," she replied sharply, turning to him and flashing her angry brown eyes. "I have a life outside of us, you know that. I have a right to have friends." "But they can't," said Ramiro, running his hand through his hair. "But it seems like everything is you. You make all the decisions long before I do. Where's my place?" She crossed her arms mechanically. "Maybe I just need some space, okay? You're always following me around, wanting to know where I'm going, who I'm with. It's exhausting." Her words hurt him more than he would have believed. "I'm not clingy," he continued, a little louder. "I just want to know that we're still a team. I love you, Adina. I thought we were going somewhere. Not just living together, but maybe something more. But I feel like lately I'm the only one trying." She snorted and tossed her hair over her shoulder. "We're a team, but that doesn't mean I have to give up on myself. You're suffocating me with all this nonsense about the future. I'm not ready for that." Their voices lowered and mingled in a furious cry of despair and hatred. Ramiro's chest tightened at her categorical refusal to submit to him, but Adina practically exploded. "Do you believe that I can't be happy without you?" she shouted, spitting out the words like laser beams. "Damn it, there are so many men who want me, Ramiro. Maybe I should just choose one of them?" Time seemed to stand still. He looked up and saw her, the woman he had dreamed of spending his whole life with, and he was pierced with pain. "Many men want me." Her words continued to echo in his head, each word like a knife stabbing him in the stomach. "What did you just say?" he whispered, hardly believing his ears. Adina blushed, and for a moment the red of anger was replaced by the red of regret, but she did not allow herself to show it. "I told you, there are so many men who want me. If you're so unhappy, maybe we shouldn't do this." "Is that what you want?" "Who is it?" Ramiro wanted to know, his heart beating so hard he could hear it pounding in his chest. "To be with someone else?" "Maybe," she replied, but it sounded like weak, uncertain bravado. Ramiro took a deep breath, and the air around him grew thick with her words. He felt humiliated, abandoned, a toy she had outgrown. But Imani had ignited something in him that was greater than pain. "If you really believe that," he said, his voice hard as metal, "then go to them. Here's what I'll tell you. I'm not going to get down on my knees and beg you to stay with me when you think you have a whole line of guys and I'm not quite sure what's next." "Ramiro, please." And then Adina called the justice room when she finally realized what she had done to herself. But he was already leaving, taking his coat off the hook by the door. "No, you made yourself clear. There are plenty of men who like you, aren't there? So let them have you. I'm done with you." The door slammed behind him, its echo reverberating facelessly through the empty hallway as he ran out into the night, leaving Adina standing there, choking on her tears. The fresh October air washed over Ramiro as he stepped outside, the soles of his boots crunching on the carpet of dead leaves covering the sidewalk. A storm of anger, grief, and distrust raged in his head, all mixed together in a wild burst of rage. How could she say that? He muttered, shoving his hands deep into his coat pockets. Was she serious? Was I just a substitute for her until someone better came along? He spent the next day wandering around town until he ended up in Riverside Park, where they sometimes had picnics on sunny summer days. The benches were empty, and the trees stood black against the pale sky. He sat down on a bench, his breath steaming in the cold air, and tears welled up in his eyes. His face burned, and he felt it grow heavy with tears as he heard her words again. Many men love me. Not the consequences as he believed, but the way she had thrown it in his face, like a weapon aimed straight at his heart. Ramiro's phone rang, hitting his thigh. Adina's name was on the screen, but he turned it off and threw it on the bench next to him. He didn't want to see her right now, maybe never. He had been watching her for 3 days, and the love he felt for her was slipping through his fingers like sand, and for the first time he wondered if he had been a fool to trust her. Night was falling, and he was as determined as fate itself. He would not humiliate himself. He hadn't come here to pursue a girl who had rejected him so easily. He wiped his face from his hairline to his chin with his shirt sleeve and stood up, feeling his decision solidify in his chest. He was leaving, not just Adina, but the part of himself that had allowed her to define his worth. The next few weeks flew by in a blur for Ramiro. He moved out of their apartment and spent the nights on his childhood friend Jake's couch until he found a small studio in the city center. It was Spartan. A mattress on the floor, a folding chair, a few boxes of books and clothes. But it was his. He had just spent a long time alone, and at first, the empty space was a place to recover. Ramiro threw himself into entertainment, immersing himself in it completely. He joined a fitness club, where the rhythmic clanging of weights calmed the noise in his head. He picked up the camera he had stopped using after his life with Adina became too intense, and spent his weekends photographing the harsh beauty of the city. At work, he smiled when he was given late assignments, even though his projects were getting better, more interesting, more experimental, and his boss was praising him. His friends noticed the changes. His shoulders were a little straighter, his laugh a little lighter, and although deep down he was still suffering from Adina's betrayal, he was on his way to picking up the pieces. But the nights were harder. Sometimes at night, alone in his studio, he would lie on his back and stare at the ceiling, and memories of Adina would seep into his consciousness. Her laughter, her fake singing in the kitchen, her warm hand in his. He went on a few dates with women he met through friends or apps, but their smiles didn't make him feel the same way she did. One evening, after a not-so-great dinner with a nice woman named Claire, he realized he hadn't forgotten Adina. Not yet. However, Adina's life took a different turn. At first, she was thrilled that nothing was holding her back. She convinced herself that Ramiro was just being dramatic and that he would beg her to come back in a few months. She threw herself back into her circle of friends, flirted, and enjoyed the attention she said she was getting at school. The week after the breakup, Mark, a charming analyst who always lingered at her desk a little longer than he should have, asked her out on a date. Yes, she agreed. And she didn't want Ramiro, no sir. Their first date was electric. Mark's easy confidence contrasted with Ramiro's heavy, intellectual, quiet intensity. Within days, they were a couple, and soon after, Adina posted photos online of herself smiling from ear to ear in bars and at concerts with Mark. Friends told her how happy she looked, and for a while she took their word for it. But weeks turned into months, and cracks began to appear. Mark was fun, but a little superficial. His flattery seemed insincere, and his interest in her waned when she wasn't the life of the party. He never asked how her day was and never noticed when she was quiet. She began to compare him to Ramiro, who once, when she was having a rough week, took her on a picnic under a bridge. One evening, after Mark had interrupted her again, which is how she felt every time she tried to talk about something serious, Adina sat on the sofa with a glass of wine and felt a sudden pang of longing. She scrolled through old photos on her phone, Ramiro and her on the beach, laughing in the rain, and tears filled her eyes. What if she had traded something real for a cheap thrill? The thought haunted her, complaints piling up, one after another, day after day. For Ramiro, the moment of reckoning came on a cold December morning. He was running along the river, breathing in the cold air, when he stopped and took a photo of the rising sun. Golden light spilling across the water, the world clean and new. He wished so much that Adina was there, imagining how she would gasp with delight. He realized that he was here, having fun, without her. He didn't want her to become a complete and harmonious person. A little later, at a friend's party, he heard that Adina and Mark had broken up. "She just rushed into it and took a reckless step," Jake said, handing Ramiro a can of beer. "I think she misses you, man." The news awakened something in Ramiro. Anger, yes, but also a strange feeling of liberation. Maybe she wasn't as ready to let him go as she had seemed. But did it matter? Over the past few months, he had worked on himself and liked the person he was becoming, stronger, more confident, less in need of anyone's approval. Adina's awakening was much more messy. After a fight with Mark, over some trivial thing, he forgot her birthday and she left, slamming the door behind her as she walked out of his apartment. Sitting in her car, she cried not for Mark, but for the loss of what she and Ramiro had once been to each other. She had spent years proving her worth, pursuing other options, and in the process had pushed away the only person who had ever noticed her. The words she had spoken that night, "So many men want me," came back to haunt her, and now she could look at them and see what they really were, a desperate shield, not the truth. She passed all of Ramiro's old haunts, the diner where they always ate, the park where they kissed under the stars, and the weight of regret squeezed her chest. She had had something good, something special, and she had destroyed it with her own hands. Then, 6 months later, fate brought them together again. Ramiro was sitting at Brew and Bean, drinking his favorite coffee to go, doodling in his notebook and stirring the foam on the surface of his steaming latte with a pencil when the bell above the door rang. He looked up and froze. There stood Adina, covered in snowflakes, staring at him. "Hi, Ramiro," she said in a quiet, almost inaudible voice. "Hello, Adina," he replied, his heart beating as fast as ever, hidden behind his calm exterior. She was the same, and yet not quite. Not in the sense that she had left him, but in the sense that her life had become less vibrant because of something he couldn't explain. "Can I sit down?" she asked, pointing to the chair opposite him. "Of course," he replied, closing his notebook. They chatted about work, the weather, mutual friends, until Adina, who had begun to speak so quickly that her hands trembled around her coffee cup, gave away her secret. "Ramiro, I've wanted to tell you this for so long. I'm ashamed that I said what I said that night, and I didn't say it, and it was cruel and unfair. I was afraid that things would get serious between us, afraid of losing you, but in the end I lost you, and I've regretted it ever since." Ramiro looked at her, and the seriousness of her voice struck him. "I appreciate that, Adina. It hurt me more than I can express. I felt like I wasn't important to you, like I was nothing to you." "You would have been fine," she said slowly, her voice trembling. "You were important to me, and I was a fool. I dated a few guys, mostly Mark, but it only helped me realize how much I didn't appreciate you. No one knows me like you do." He leaned back in his chair and thought for a moment. Part of him wanted to climb over the table, hug her, and erase the last 6 months. but he was too big to jump in blindly. "I missed you too," he admitted in his deliciously deep voice. "But I've changed, Adina. I've had to learn to live without you. I'm not the same guy who left you." "Me neither," she said, leaning toward him. "I know what I want, and it's you. I want to earn it, to be better, for us." Ramiro's eyes softened. He didn't move. "If we're going to do this, we have to do it differently. No games, no taunting our rivals. We'll talk, listen to each other, love each other. I can't live as if he's my only option." With tears in her eyes, Adina nodded. "I promise, Ramiro, I can't lose you again. Can we try? Slow down? Start over, maybe?" He looked at her, the woman who had broken his heart, but still held a piece of that broken heart inside her. A smile flashed across his lips, full of thought and hope. "Yes, we can try. Slowly." The first thing she wanted to do was take his hand, and he let her touch his fingers, and their touch was as delicate as a fragile leaf. Snow was falling, and there, behind its silence, lay a new possibility. They had hurt each other, learned from that pain, and now they were balancing on the edge of something better, if only they could do it together.